Alright, hello everybody and welcome back to the Stock Market Outlook video brought to you by DFU. As always, we're going to run through the current trend of the market, where we're at with regards to the indexes, then we'll talk about leading groups and themes, and then finally narrow it down to the top stocks and opportunities of the current moment. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive right in. And actually, before we dive in, I do want to also mention that we created a free screening and routine email course. This is an excellent resource that we put a lot of time into. It covers daily routines, weekly routines, how to create a screen, how to find those top market leaders that much faster. So if you want to check that out, the link is down below in the description. It should be popping up right now, or you can just go to dfu.com/screening guide, enter info here, and we'll send it right to your inbox. So definitely check this out. And with that said, let's start with the market monitor. So this is a dashboard that I've created in DFU. I find it really handy to kind of organize things. I've got my execution set up here, my execution dashboard, and then this is kind of my look at the indexes, key groups as well. That's how I've kind of got organized the indexes and kind of key ETFs up here, and then we've got the kind of industry group sector ETFs down here, so I can quickly see, how are the indexes doing. Bring up those charts. I've got the percentage of stocks above the 40 moving average, 40-day moving average here, plotted in black here. This is a percentage scale here, so we're currently at around 54%, which I don't look at this too much during a trend. More, it's looking at those extremes. You can see back in the November correction, we got back down below 20, 25, even approached 15, and that's kind of what you're looking for towards the tail end of an intermediate correction. And then I've got new highs, new lows as well, which does give you a sense of that overall market breadth. So that's kind of this setup here. Then we've got the indexes, as I mentioned, and then I've got a whole list of ETFs that correspond to different themes. I can quickly sort by percent change over the last 5 days. So looking at on the weekends, I can see what's been strongest. MSOS has been strong. Semis, of course, have been very strong this week. And also, during the week, during the day, I can quickly, cancel out this sort here and, sort with what's strongest on that particular day. So it really gives you a great sense of rotation and where money is flowing. So let's go ahead and sort that back to 5-day and start with the QQQ. Overall, we continue to trend above the 21 EMA. That's pretty much been our guide. We've had a few slight undercuts, but we've never really lived below that 21 EMA. And we had a gap up, an all-time closing high this past Thursday after NVDA again knocked earnings out of the park on Wednesday night. That caused a gap up, not just NVIDIA, but kind of lifted the whole overall market as a whole. A little bit of hesitation, a little bit of downside reversal action on Friday, but not too much volume coming in. And looking at charts, it was mostly kind of sideways consolidation. We haven't really made that much progress over the past few weeks. And, honestly, looking at a lot of charts, if we saw 1 more week, 2 more weeks of sideways movement, that would set up some really nice pivots, some really nice kind of chart completions. But, at the moment, we're a little bit short-term extended because of that gap up. But, you can't really be too bearish if we're above a rising 21, 50, 200 SMA and right near 52-week highs. I think it's kind of as simple as that. But, the QQQ doesn't tell the whole story. I also like to take a look at the IWO because that gives you a better sense of what smaller cap and mid caps are doing. And this is still kind of in its overall base and consolidation here. We saw a really powerful move, then some very erratic action here. Power move to the upside, gap down to the 21, power move back at the 21, and now we're kind of in this mid-range, right below, this key level again. I love to see this start to trend cleanly above the 21 EMA. I love to see the volatility start to settle out. This, even if it's moving to the upside, doesn't lead to the best charts and opportunities because the moves are so quick. And then you've got kind of gap downs out of nowhere. We want to see kind of the gap downs decrease, this become a little bit more uniform and trend, kind of like it was here, even though we did have some pretty volatile days. But just a nice cleaner trend would be ideal. But we are above the 21 EMA, the 50 SMA and 200 SMA. So all of those things are aligned quite well. So, in terms of the QQQ and IWO, we are, in an uptrend above that rising 21 EMA. That's kind of my on-off switch with regards to the market cycle. Looking at the QQQ, we've been trending for quite some time. We have kind of restarted the cycle, in small ways, undercutting and restarting back up through the 21 EMA. But the opportunities aren't quite as golden as they were back in this November timeframe. Always want to be cognizant of that and make sure that you're not taking too much risk when the overall market level is a little bit extended. You want to wait for those low risk opportunities and then take advantage of them and focus on those leaders. So that's pretty much it in terms of the overall indexes. Looking now at the leading themes, I think the clear one, of course, is semis and AI. That's led by NVDA, AMD, all these semi names. And also we've got the crypto theme going on. Biotech continues to be strong. So there continues to be, opportunities within that. We'll definitely take a look at a bunch of crypto related names because those, have set up kind of mini pullback, mini handles, whatever you want to call it, after a nice move up. So we'll take a look at those in just a minute. But in terms of overall themes that I'm focused on, semis, AI continue to lead the way. Biotech, there's been some, opportunities there for sure. That's a little bit more volatile, but, definitely some spots there. But I think the big one is the AI. And of course, software continues to be strong as well. There's definitely some AI influence over on that side of things as well. So with that said, I want to dive into a few specific charts here. These are stocks that I'm focused on personally. I do have positions in some of them and just kind of what I'm watching currently. And again, it kind of corresponds to those themes that I discussed. So first, let's bring up NVIDIA. Just because, it is the institutional quality liquid leader at this moment. We had a strong reaction to earnings here. You can see if you hover over this in deep view, you get a great, short-term picture of both their earnings and sales. You had surprises for both. So that trend is fantastic. And actually going to a weekly chart, I do want to show off the earnings and sales line here in deep view that, we added about a month ago here. If you search up DV, you can click earnings and sales. We'll load that up and you can see those earnings plotted right there with the stock chart. You can see the change in rate here. That's kind of what I want to key in on here compared to, this nice trend back in this area, but you really see a change in acceleration in that growth. And that's really what's led to this fantastic move, which, starting from this acceleration in sales, you get price action, the same thing. So it's always good to see, the technicals lining up with the fundamentals. And this is really what institutions look at to see, what is this company going to earn in the future? And that's what, makes them take up large positions and continue to add to positions as well. So this change in rate is key. This is driven by that AI theme. It's just really cool to see in a visual way on your chart, looking both at both the technical price action as well as the weekly price action. And that's available for all weekly charts because that's really what we want to design it for, is looking at that overall picture. And just on a weekly basis, super strong trend, starting with a stage 2 breakout back all the way in January of 2023, formed this longer term base. As we mentioned, VCP action, really tight, 3 weeks tight in here, and then broke out. And if you want to highlight 3 weeks tight, by the way, in deep view, you can as well. Let me actually show that off as well. If we do the technical patterns V2, we can access a whole bunch of different technical patterns that you can turn on and off. We'll turn all these off except for 3 weeks tight. And there we go. You can also use RMV in here. So when RMV gets tight, you can basically show that as well. It works on a weekly basis as well to identify those tight areas. But let's focus on 3 weeks tight here. You can see whenever the bars are highlighted in orange, we have had that 3 weeks tight, which is a subtle sign of accumulation and, a potential entry area. You had a nice bar here after that 3 weeks tight. Even though the highs don't look tight, those closes are kind of the clue that institutions are supporting the stock and kind of pinning it at that price. And you can see that throughout this move. And right before this prior breakout here, we had a nice 3 weeks tight pattern. And then here, I really like this candle because we had an upside reversal, undercut of these prior 2 weeks. And that just led to more fuel on the fire for this really strong move, about 40% in just a short amount of time. Actually, about 60%, honestly, in these few weeks. So the technical patterns indicator definitely worth also taking a look at here in deep view. With that said, let's go back to a daily chart and we'll kind of run through the dailies on a bunch of names. By the way, the earnings and sales, that's only for the weekly charts. That's where you want to look at that longer term view, so it won't appear on the daily chart, and we'll actually just X those out. With that said, looking at NVIDIA, just basically in trend, not much to say. Great action after this earnings report. A little bit of a reversal down here, but this is kind of to be expected after a really nice move after earnings. Wouldn't be surprised and wouldn't mind, honestly, 1-2 weeks of consolidation here, setting up a pivot, and then continuation up, and ideally just continue to trend above that rising 21 EMA. Again, because of this gap up, we're a little bit short-term extended from the 21 EMA and the short-term moving averages. AMD, looking at its sister stock, this is setting up nicely in the space. We had a kind of gap up in sympathy with NVIDIA here, then an inside day here to end out the week on Friday. I'd love to see maybe one more tight day. Maybe we get an undercut this level, retest the 21 EMA, then close mid-range, and then potentially a breakout here. That's what I'm keying in on. You've got this kind of secondary level around 180. That is a little bit earlier than these all-time highs. That, to me, is more the real pivot. But you definitely want to manage risk, at that swing low. If we do consolidate a little bit more for a few days, you could use, the 21 EMA. That would be a nice tight and logical spot to manage risk. It had, nice action holding this low. But you never know what's going to happen with NVIDIA earnings. If those earnings hadn't turned out right, and you bought this day against this level, yes, intraday you had to manage your risk versus this low, but you could have easily had a gap down, to start that day. So looking at this one for sure. Again, a really nice trend. NVIDIA is the leader, but this one definitely has a lot of potential as well. The growth numbers aren't quite there, at the same level as NVIDIA, but is in the same space and has that same kind of growth potential. Robinhood is another one that's pretty interesting, progressing really nicely from this earnings gap. We had a tight day, move up, consolidation, and this is acting a lot better than what the general market was doing during this time, and progressed really nicely into the end of the week. And looking at a weekly chart just to give that overall perspective, we're potentially starting a stage 2 uptrend here. Nice move on really large volume, so always good to see. And if we take a look at the quarterly numbers, let's take a look at that. You can see really nice growth coming in and also going out to the estimates. And this is another great thing about DeepView. You can see all these estimates for the companies going out in the future. And this is really what stocks trade upon. And you can see triple digit growth in earnings, sales growth supporting that. So great to see that as well. Going back to a daily here, I also want to highlight CrowdStrike. Cybersecurity definitely has been another leading theme. Beautiful trend above the 50 and 21 EMA for the most part. We did have a gap down on earnings, but we kind of snapped back really nicely, supported it at that 50-day moving average, as the best true market leaders do during their moves. And now, we've got this high, and this could be the start of a base. I wouldn't mind to see it consolidate for a few weeks, set up overall, because we have just been kind of trending for a few months now. So a few weeks of consolidation could set up some more low risk buy points. And just provide some opportunities there in the future in this name. Looking at coin, this is one of the crypto related names that I'll be watching. It's moved up strongly off the bottom, reversal here, and now is kind of pulling back into this area, this prior support level or prior resistance area, and it's now support, and just kind of forming out a handle. So potentially actionable through these pivots. I wouldn't mind, one more week, a few more days of consolidation, tightening up. But you've got these lows that you can use to manage risk against, and a few more days would let that 21 EMA kind of catch up to price, which could set up things really nicely. And I also want to bring up, I think CLSK is also crypto related, and you can see this is a very similar looking chart, also pulling back, forming this consolidation, and this is a higher momentum name, lower quality, more speculative, whatever you want to call it. Just a faster mover name that's more of a swing trade type name versus a position type name, and is setting up a similar pattern as is coin. So I just want to highlight that one as well. But the whole theme, I think, is worth keeping an eye on in the coming days. Bring up Meta. This is acting well post earnings gap. It's had a little bit of reversal Friday, but is acting well. And wouldn't mind, one more day of weakness, then reconfirmation of the upside. Let's let that 21 EMA catch up to price a little bit here. Nice gap along with the market on Thursday. ARM in the semi space has acted a lot better than the market and is set up nicely right at this pivot. We'll see if we do get a push out here and secondary move. This one is definitely one that can go really fast, so make sure you're managing risk and all that. We do have an unfilled gap here, which if it remains unfilled, that's obviously a sign of strength. But please be aware that this could trade sideways a little bit before this pivot. But I'm definitely watching this key level next week. Shake Shack in non-semi space acting well after this earnings gap. Big volume on this move. Tried to push out Friday, couldn't quite hang in there, but is forming a nice little post earnings gap consolidation. I love playing these names. Net after earnings, you can see pull back pretty hard. I tried this a few times in here, got stopped, and it just needs a little bit more time here. We've got the anchored VWAP from the earnings gap to play off of. But overall, I like the growth expectations here. This got hit a little bit with the cyber news as well, but we'll just have to see how this plays out. It looks a little bit, like it needs a full base with this being the base pivot, but we'll have to see how this plays out the next few days. PLTR, another recent earnings gap. You've got the confluence of this prior low, anchor VWAP here around this area. It did pull back pretty hard Friday short term. That's a negative, but if it kind of moves sideways for a week, could set up a really nice pivot. Let that 21 EMA catch up to price. And to the downside, the levels I'm watching, you've got the HVC as well as that 21 EMA lining up in that spot, as well as this prior swing lows. So definitely a name to watch just because of this huge volume, really nice growth potential, and also going over to the weekly chart, just where it's at, moving out the right hand side of the institutional due diligence phase. We had one base in here. This kind of started the move. Then I kind of count this as another base. This could technically be the stage one base here, because this is a little bit early for the O'Neill style base count. So this could be your stage one base. We've got an earnings gap, and now it's kind of resting right at the top of that. And that level with the HVC also lines up with this high. So that's another reason why that could be significant. But wouldn't mind just forming a base up here and then watching for opportunities if that really tightens up and acts nicely. But even though this was a pullback week, you can see volume is a lot less than these moves up. Going back to the daily here, also want to highlight app. This is another recent earnings gap that held up really well. And you've got the HVC to play to the upside. Couldn't quite hang and hold the breakout move or push up here on Friday. But again, wouldn't mind 1 week of consolidation. Uber is another name that's been trending beautifully. Really nice action after this gap up, and is holding up well with the overall market. Let's also talk about Frog. This is in the software space. Similar to Net, it pulled back pretty hard, but it's just kind of holding up in there. Tight day on Friday, so we'll see how this acts next week. But we've got a big base it's breaking out of. And again, going to that weekly chart, this is kind of a template that I like to look for. You've got the overall decline post-IPO. It forms that stage one base and then starts that stage two uptrend. And you can see volumes picking up. It's becoming more liquid. All of that is acting really, really nice. So just kind of looking for that overall setup and entry tactic to use. So that's pretty much all the names I want to talk through today. Let me know your thoughts down below. What names are you watching as well? What are your thoughts on the overall market? And if you did find this helpful, please go ahead and leave a like down below. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll be posting these every week from now on. I know I've been slacking a little bit in the past few months. We've had some big projects coming up with regards to Deep View, Trailline, all of that. So I've been a little bit busy, but I'll be posting these weekly from now on. So let me know if you find them helpful down below in the comment section. And just a quick reminder, if you haven't yet, definitely check out this resource. It's 100% free. Just go to dv.com/screening guide or click the link down below in the description. So with that said, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in future videos. Take care.